The CEO Hour with Deanacres. The mission? To help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEOs, is your business growing? Where's your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Deanacres.
Well, welcome to the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Deanacres, and I want to thank you for joining us this week as we bring you top CEOs and entrepreneurs that share the journey. This includes their thoughts and ideas that have helped them in their success. And also, what's really cool is the things they've learned along the way, maybe not to do again. Today, I'd like to welcome Hugh Campbell, CEO of AC4S Technologies. Welcome, Hugh.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Hugh, you know, our listeners really love the journey. I mean, most people know you're successful, and I know you're successful, but I like to start the journey on kind of an eventful day, and in your case, back in May, maybe May 10th of 66. What happened?
Well, thank you, Dean. Well, that's when my parents, a Methodist minister and a homemaker, brought in their youngest child of 6 in Connecticut.
Wow.
So born and raised in Connecticut. My dad was a Methodist minister, and my mom a homemaker. And we got to move around quite a bit and got exposed to quite a few different things, moving from Connecticut to Chicago and South Bend, Indiana, all those kinds of places.
So when you were growing up, were there things in your youth life that stick out that kind of help kind of get you on a trajectory of what you wanted to do with your life?
Well, yeah, absolutely. The first part is, growing up in being a preacher's kid. You had high expectations for discipline and all those types of things. But in our household, it was, you were going to go to college and you were going to make something out of yourself. Being the youngest of 6 kids in a preacher's family, we didn't have a lot of money. So, I decided very early on that I did not want to be poor.
That's probably, I think that's a theme of all of our entrepreneurs.
That's right.
It's a motivation.
That's right.
So where did you go to high school?
So my high school years were actually split. Again, my dad moved every few years. What I didn't realize is he was always going to a bigger church. I didn't realize how ambitious he was. I just realized that we were having to move as a kid, right? But anyway, so high school years were in Chicago. I went to Kenwood Academy in the south side of Chicago, and split a sophomore year and moved to South Bend, home of Notre Dame.
Right.
And went to a school there, high school called LaSalle High School.
So you're getting ready to graduate from high school. You're motivated because you're the youngest, and also your dad's kind of insisted on furthering your education. How did you decide where you were going to go and what all the steps were that led you there?
So that's a great question. So, you go and you take your SATs and you check all the boxes that say, send me college brochures. This is how it was done, 30 years ago. Actually even longer. But so anyway, I kept getting all these brochures from colleges, and it's great. And one came, and it came in a brown plain envelope, said Headquarters, United States Army, United States Military Academy, West Point, New York. And it was unlike anything else. So it's like, okay, I just threw it to the side. I was a typical teenager. My dad comes home and he says, "What's this?" And I said, "I don't know. It's something from the Army. I'm not going in the Army." He said, "Okay, just do me a favor, open it and read it." I said, "Okay." Being a typical teenager, I procrastinated. A week goes by. He asked me again, "Are you going to open it?" Yeah. I'm going to open it, Dad. No problem. 3 days go by. He asked me again. So I'm finally getting the hint. He really wants me to open this thing. So when I opened that brown envelope and I saw what West Point was about and how different it was from all the other colleges I was looking at, I said, well, this may be for me.
Really? What caught your eye?
They talk about duty, honor, country, the uniforms, and then the people that have gone there. U.S. presidents, astronauts, the founder of AOL. It's a long laundry list of folks that have really contributed to building the country. And it was just so intriguing. So I went through the process. You know, I have to get your nomination from a congressman or senator and all that. And went through the process, and I got accepted, but I was on the national waiting list. I was like, national waiting list? What is that? I said, well, we have all these offers out to these kids that go to Harvard, MIT, Yale, all that. We don't know who's actually going to actually show up. So you're high enough that you've been accepted, you're qualified, but we don't know that you're actually going to get a slot. And they said, well, you're high enough on the list, we can guarantee you a slot to the prep school. And if you go to the prep school, you're almost virtually guaranteed to get in. If you do well, you got to finish. And I actually skipped a grade in high school, so I was a year ahead of my peers. So I said, well, I can do that for a year. So you enlist in the Army. We went to the prep school. The prep school now is on the grounds of West Point. You know, I didn't have a lot of experience with the military, and my family being, you know, a ministerial family. You know, I was a lover, not a fighter, right? So, so I said, I'll do this for a year and make sure it's right for me. It seems to be okay. And that first semester at the prep school, we actually went to West Point. We didn't have money to go traipsing around the country and checking out colleges. So we actually went to West Point. And once I saw it live in person, it was like, there's nothing I won't do to get to this school.
So you go to the prep school,
mm-hmm.
and the prep school's there in New York.
Now it's in New York. At the time, it was in New Jersey.
So you go to the prep school in New Jersey. You had to enlist in order to go to the prep school.
Correct.
So now you're kind of all in.
Yes.
And yeah, this was a pretty gutsy move, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing is, you know, there's lots of different options, but you don't get afforded those opportunities very often. Right.
Right. So the message to our listeners are you have to be aware and kind of was that like, would you, in looking back in hindsight, would you say you were very analytical? If a listener was listening right now and you're in this position, you're in high school,
mm-hmm.
you've jumped a grade academically.
Yep.
You are suddenly turned on to a West Point possibility.
Yep.
They say go to the academy. You're probably going to get in if you go there. That had to be a whole series of decisions going on in a young man's mind that had to be kind of precipitating that bigger vision, right?
Well, yes. So first off, I think with any challenging undertaking, you have to know yourself. You can't go to any of those service academies for someone else because your parents want you to go, your high school guidance counselor wants you to go. No, you've got to want it, and it's different. It's challenging. But I figured it'd be a great trajectory. Again, look who else went there.
Oh yeah, so. no. I mean, to our listeners out there, I don't think there's anybody, especially in today's climate, that would say if you went to a military academy, that's anything but a stellar decision.
Right.
But you had to have done pretty well in high school, too. You weren't like an idiot screwing around in high school, were you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Huh?
Absolutely. You're right.
Was that your dad, or were you pretty self-motivated to do well in high school?
Well, we have, being the youngest, I had some great examples in my older brothers and sisters, all going to college and being doctors and lawyers, all those kinds of things. So I had great, leaders ahead of me in my family that were going on and doing great things. So
were they driving you? Were they come on, little brother, you got to get your act together? Or were you always had your act together in high school?
I'd like to say I had my act together, but there's growing up as a kid, you have your challenges, but we were just expected in our household that you were going to go to college and you were going to make something of yourself.
Well, that's awesome. We're going to be going into a segment here in a minute, our second segment. I want to hear more about that. Is there anything else in that early journey that our listeners that stick in your head that really kind of impacted you?
Well, I think that, you have to give these teenagers probably more credit than we often give them. I was the type of person that knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to better myself. And I knew my own weaknesses, and being in a very strict household and going off to college, how is that going to turn out versus going to a military academy with 4 years, very rigid, environment, and you do what you're supposed to do. You're going to finish in 4 years. You're going to have a degree, and you're going to be on your way. So I think a lot of kids understand those types of things, and we've got to give them credit for that.
That's a good point. I think people underestimate what our youth are really capable and what they're really doing. The outlying comments that you hear are truly outliers.
That's right.
Because I have 5 sons and they're all rock stars.
That's right.
So again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs every week. And I just want to remind everybody before we go to break that that $10,000 CEO physical value is still available. All you have to do is reach out at help@adjunctceo.com. That's help@adjunctceo.com. And I've had a lot of listeners reach out and ask me about the 3-circle sales process that helps them. So again, anytime you need something or you want to just ask a question to myself or Hugh later, just reach out at help@adjunctceo.com. And we'll always get back with you. And our mission every week is to bring you top CEOs that share their journey so that you can learn from them. So we'll see you in segment 2.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers. Connect with Dean at deanacres.com. We'll be right back.
So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Welcome to the CEO Hour segment 2. I'm your host, Dean Akers, again, bringing you top CEOs every week and entrepreneurs that share their journey. This week we have Hugh Campbell, the CEO of AC4S Technologies. And when we were going into the break, he was telling us about his journey as the youngest child in a six folks family. Mm-hmm. Son of a preacher man.
That's right.
There's a song out.
That's right.
And he was sharing with us about getting ready to start and embark on his journey into the military academy system. Which Hugh, that's bold. Yeah, my hats off to you in so many ways.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And for what you said, and what a great observation for our listeners to share with their kids. You looked at more not about what the education was about, but you looked at the alumni and the breeding or whatever you would call it that came out of there and said, hey, if all these people graduated from there, I'm probably going to be okay. Is that a fair assessment?
I think the alumni was a big part of it.
Yeah.
You know, they take pride in the alumni. And really, one of the common themes was helping to build the country. And if you look at some of the folks that have gone to that particular institution, many of them, because everyone graduates with an engineering degree.
Really?
Yes. And if you look back over the nation's history, West Pointers have been involved in so many things in building the country over time, and in the leadership in times of conflict, but just being a part of the fabric of the United States. And to me, that was pretty important, and that's very special.
So you're in New Jersey at the academy, and do you sit there and you start up? You've moved away from home for your first time, right?
Yes, indeed.
Do you sit there and go, "Wow, this was a good decision at the moment"?
Well, let me tell you, I got to tell you this funny story. So I was kind of a bookworm in school, right? So I get to the prep school, and the first day it's indoctrination, right? So, we're in the barracks. And we're at parade rest, so I have my hands behind my back, and I'm touching the wall. And so I knew that I was going to the military, so I kind of built myself up to do like 25 push-ups and run like a mile, right? That was my preparation.
That's epic.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the drill sergeant's walking down the hallway, doesn't even look at me, sees that my hands are touching the wall, and he says, "Drop and give me 50. I'm like, 50? I just built myself up to 25. What are you talking about? So that was my indoctrination. At that point, I didn't think it was such a good decision.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but clearly, it was a great thing.
So you go through that session of it, and do you have to apply to go to West Point now, or is it kind of a trajectory?
Well, the process hasn't changed at all. You have to go through the process of applying. There's kids from every state. There's foreign students, foreign nationals, and you have to get your appointment from a congressman, a senator, a representative. It can be vice president, some of the others. My appointment came from my senator, Senator Dick Lugar. But you have to go through that process.
But was that for the academy too?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So once you're in the academy, now you're staged up.
Mm-hmm.
So were you nervous in that first year that, or is everybody kind of going, "Hey, this is kind of a layup shot, no brainer if you're in here"?
Well, I will tell you. So, their modus operandi is we've got all these type A personalities. Everybody's been the captain of their football team, the valedictorian, salutatorian from every high school around the country, and they're all superstars. So the first thing they want to do is break you down. So you spend your first year being getting your humility back. And
do they do a good job of that?
Absolutely. So they call it Beast Barracks your first summer, and they challenge you mentally and physically. And I will tell you that there came a point where I thought I was not going to make it. And I don't want to go into a lot of it, but so you're required to serve the upperclassmen at meals. So. And you work as a team. Your 3 cadets, the first year cadets, are all working together. And we had a particularly bad cadet that was not allowing us to eat. And I decided very early in that experience that if I can't eat, I can't stay here. And it became apparent to some of the upperclassmen that we were having some difficulties. And when I got back to my room, there was a sandwich waiting for me.
Wow!
So
that
was the difference between staying or going. Wow. That sandwich.
but it was also the people that were around you that looked out for you.
Absolutely, I think that is one of the earliest examples of leadership, right? That I saw, and somebody thought that it's probably worth saving this guy, and they went out of their way to make sure I stayed.
We had General Beidler on. He's a 3-star Marine general that flew F-18s and went to the Naval Academy.
Yep.
And he had stories similar. I mean, it's pretty epic at what it almost seems like they do that to give you the sandwich to teach you leadership or an example that you just sticks with you forever.
Absolutely. They It is a common theme. You gotta, again, you've got all these high performers, and you're gonna break them down to the lowest level and mold them and shape them into what you want them to be. Leaders of this country, leaders in the military, leaders of, back then they said leaders of men, leadership. What I have found, even in the military and post-military, there is really a lack of leadership in so many different organizations, and they really teach it to you from the beginning.
So for our entrepreneurs, you've got all those type A's, and that's what you want at a military academy, and that's what you want in the military as far as these officers, right?
Right.
What would you tell a company to create an environment to attract type A's, and then understand you've got to do certain things to keep a type A engaged, yes?
Absolutely. Well, again, I think what we learned there and what we've learned throughout over time is, assembling a great team of people requires great leadership. And if you're going to get the most out of those people, that's the real key. That's the real trick. You're going to need your type A's, but you're going to need other types of people. I often equate it to the NFL draft, right? You're gonna whatever the mission may be, you need to assemble that team of people that can go accomplish that mission. And it's going to require a variety of skills. It's going to test your leadership and how do you motivate those people to want to get that thing done well.
So now you're at West Point. You've obviously, now you're a classman. You're doing the whole gig.
Mm-hmm.
How does that journey go at West Point? And then when you graduate, what happens?
Well, so there's all along the way, you're given a variety of leadership challenges that really cuts to the core. You know what you're made of, physically, mentally, academically, and you'll go through that process. And at the end, you say, are you ready to go? Yes or no?
Do they actually ask you that, or do you ask yourself in the mirror?
I think you ask yourself in the mirror. I mean, you're given various. You go out into the Army. You work with the troops. I had an opportunity to be a drill sergeant 1 year, and I was at the Pentagon another year.
Wow.
So you get a wide variety of leadership experiences, and it's all part of the forming and the molding and the process that get you from that teenager to going out there and being a leader of troops.
Was there any one thing that you took away that became a leadership skill that you've been able to carry on with you from that?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons is, there's this dichotomy. You have a job to get done, but you also got to take care of the people. And sometimes you got to ask those people to make some real sacrifices. There's a great movie that I have used in my leadership training and training other folks. It's U571.
What is it?
U571. This is the movie, and it's World War II submarine movie, and they need to get a torpedo to fire, and Matthew McConaughey tells the young sailor that he's going to put this mask on, he's going to swim down this tube and get this the pressurized torpedo to fire, and they both knew that would probably be his death, but they knew that was the mission and it needed to get done. So there's times that you're going to have to ask people to do what needs to be done.
Wow. Well, as we finish up segment 2, I think that's a big message for our entrepreneurs, of being able to know that you've got to have people get the mission done. And I think sometimes people skirt that. And I'm working with companies right now, and that transparency of mission, people get really behind it. I'm talking about the workers love it.
That's right.
And why do you, in the next segment, we'll talk about why you think people don't follow through on that. So again, this is Deanacres, the host of the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs every week. And we'll be right back in segment 3.
helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. Connect with Dean at deanacres.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Helping to navigate today's marketplace for startups and mainstays. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Welcome to segment 3 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs every week and entrepreneurs that share their journey. And as usual, it includes their thoughts and ideas that helped them in their success along the way. And today we have Hugh Campbell, CEO of AC4S Technologies. And the first 2 segments have just been epic about his journey and what he's telling us about mission and leadership. And it's not one of these typical CEOs that talks about mission and leadership and they learned it kind of OJT. He learned it in the as a graduate of West Point, the real deal. So tell us about now you're in the Army. How does that whole cycle go and what takes you out of there and where do you go?
So graduating from West Point back in 1988, we were really on the cusp of a real change. So we had been trained to go out and lead the Army, and all of a sudden, the next year, the wall in Berlin comes down.
That's right.
And we start talking about peace breaking out and the Cold War is over and all those things. So we were transitioning. We had Ronald Reagan was coming out of office, and George Bush the first was George H.W. was coming into office, and it was going to be different. But what we quickly saw was, Saddam Hussein going over the border into Kuwait, and instead of drawing down, we were massing and getting ready to go to all-out war. So there was some epic changes back in those times, and I will tell you that leaders now in the military are challenged by counterterrorism and how everything changed after 9/11 and the conflict between the superpowers has come back, Russia and China and all those things. So there's always challenges. There always will be. But we went through the military. It was great learning experience. I was deployed to obviously Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and all those things. I got signed down to Panama, the country of Panama. And at that time, again, we were closing down the Panama Canal, which the United States had owned or been responsible for many, many decades. And we were pulling out because the Carter administration had said, we're going to hand that back. So we went down there to Panama, came back based on, relationships and performance, got asked to come to MacDill Air Force Base to a specialized communications unit. I was a communications officer, and that's when I got introduced to all these special missions and SOCOM, the U.S. Special Operations Command, and some of the things that go on around the world today.
That had to be epic. I mean, your little journey, I had no idea because I remember when the Berlin Wall, I remember all those pieces. You were like stepping right behind history every move you made.
Every bit.
And my mom grew up she worked in the Panama Canal Zone.
Is that right?
Yeah. And she, so that was a big deal for us to give that back. Man, and then now you end up at MacDill.
So we end up at MacDill, and I'm in this communications unit, and they said, okay, great, you're responsible for the special operations segment. And I couldn't even spell special operations, had no idea what that was about. And it was my first assignment. I was out the door in less than 3 weeks after getting here to the Tampa Bay area. And but again, it was a great learning opportunity. Those guys are highly trained professionals, and getting exposed to the different branches of the military and how they solve problems and their leadership styles was just a fantastic opportunity. But it also brought me here to the Tampa Bay region, and I realized that it'd be pretty tough to leave this area. It's a fantastic area. It's growing, and I decided to stay.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the weather today, we're in January. If you called your buddies up in Indiana or called your buddies in Chicago,
that's right.
Yeah, they're still knee deep in snow.
That's right.
They just got whacked again. So you're out of McDill. You're part of Special Ops, which had to be fascinating.
So our organization was technically a support organization.
Right.
So we supported all of the quote unquote war fighters, the senior officers that are charged with the nation's toughest problems. And so our communications organization supported all those guys, but we spent obviously a lot of time supporting the Special Operations Command.
So how do you transition? Does your time run out, or do you decide you want to? How do you go from kind of traversing across the globe with all these challenges to ended up in Tampa, as you shared the weather and everything and beauty at Tampa? But where do you transition?
So we were pretty busy in that stage. What most people don't probably have an appreciation for is we spent a lot of time making sure throughout the 90s that with the breakdown of Russia, that all the nuclear weapons scattering across the globe, that didn't turn into a bad thing for the United States. So we were pretty busy. Did make all the headlines on all those types of things, but I just knew that it was a pace that I couldn't sustain. It took a toll on the family and all those types of things. And when I was presented with the one of my senior enlisted guys had retired and went and worked in a local commercial communications organization, and he calls me up one day and he says, "Hey, sir, you ever think about getting out of the military?" And on that day, I was having a bad day. And he says, "You know what? That's right. I'm thinking about it. Yes, at this very moment." And it's kind of actually funny because he said, "Well, send me your resume." And I said, "Okay." And once again, it gets better the next day, and I'm back at work, and a week goes by, and he calls me, "Hey, you gonna send that resume?" It's kind of like my dad. And I said, "Yeah. I'm gonna get it to you." And I didn't actually have a resume. And so finally I put one together after a couple more days and sent it in. And shockingly enough, they called me the same day. I said,
"Oh, wow.
Oh my God, they must be really interested." So I took time off and went to go interview with those folks, and they wanted me, and it seemed to be a great fit. It was a very, very natural transition because I was continuing to do communications, which is what I had done in the military. And you're managing people, resources. It was a growing company, so we had lots of challenges. It was very fun. I didn't realize how fun it was going to be.
So they say, "We want you on board."
Mm-hmm.
What happens? Do you have to walk into your commanding? By the way, what rank had you?
At that time, I was a senior captain, and yes, I walked in, and I told my commander that I was going to resign my commission from the military and go work in the private sector, and he was shocked. Thought I had potential and all that, tried to convince me to stay, but I was like, no, this is my next path. And then the funny part was I got a call from the sister organization, which was a reserve unit, and the commander there calls me over and says, "Hey, I want you to join up once you get out." I was like, I didn't know I could do that. And he said, "Absolutely, we would love to have you." And it gave me an opportunity to stay engaged in the military while I went off and pursued the private sector.
So you did join the reserves?
I did.
Oh, wow. So now you leave. Now you're in your private sector. You're wearing jeans or a suit or something,
Yeah.
right? You're not in camo anymore.
Not anymore.
So how did that work?
So transitioning to this company was called Intermedia Communications. It was headquartered here in Tampa. It was a $1 billion organization, 5,000 employees. It had done extremely well. They benefited from the .com explosion, and it was just such a tremendous learning opportunity. Fantastic organization, great culture. I got promoted very quickly because what we saw was that there was, again, a dearth of leadership. and breaking down the problem, applying the resources, getting people all rowing in the same direction at the same time, understanding their place, allowed me to get promoted pretty quickly, and it was a fantastic transition.
Well, that's awesome. And by the way, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate that. And when we come back into segment 4, the final segment, I want you to really talk about your journey there and tips you would share with our listeners that helped you, especially now that you're out in what I call the civilian world, that would help them. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs every week. And I want to remind everybody, you can go to adjunctceo.com and get any information. Then all our prior shows are also on the CEO Hour podcast. So you're welcome to get those. And we have tons of downloads for our prior shows. And then if you send an email to help@adjunctceo.com, I'll be happy to send you out that CEO physical. It's absolutely free. It's a series of questions that will help you kind of establish your blind spots. We started that 25 years ago, and it's helped a lot of companies, and it's just a really cool document that's yours. You can throw it away. You don't have to take it. There's no requirement. But I think if you take the time to do it, it'll help you view your blind spots and look for getting help through either somebody around you, or in the case of Hugh, you just put a guy out to call the best and brightest out of the military to come help you. So again, Dean Akers, your host of the CEO Hour, and we'll be right back for the final segment with Hugh Campbell, CEO of AC4S Technologies.
Success never takes the weekend off. Connect with Dean at deanacres.com. The CEO Hour continues in a moment.
Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. CEO physical @adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com.
Helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.
Well, welcome for the fourth and final segment of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs every week. This week has been especially fun for me to have Hugh Campbell, CEO of AC4S Technologies, who is a retired, or he left the military, graduate of the military, West Point, and great service to our country. But the earlier segments, your journey was, you stayed right ahead of every craziness that went on, didn't you?
It was crazy. It was crazy.
So now you've gone to work for Intermedia, and in the break we were talking about the CLEX and the deregulation.
That's
so
right.
You were part of that was a crazy time.
That was a very crazy time. But again, what we did was, with the Telecommunications Act of 1996, we unleashed the potential, right? We let loose the forces of innovation and capital, and it was just a wonderful time. And again, that major regulatory change led to a lot of wealth creation, innovation, created a lot of jobs, and just really moved the country forward and from a technology perspective.
So you're with Intermedia, and you progress through there through your leadership skills and obviously your talents. What happens in that journey?
So that's really the funny part, because while that organization was fantastic, great culture, everybody had the yes we can, the engine, the little train that could, going against all the big guys. What actually happened was, my boss ran the internet division, and I had all the other data networks. And he left. Again, this was, the go.com bubble and all that stuff. He left to go to a startup company. He has since gone on to, he does the global infrastructure for Google. But
Smart guy.
He's a smart guy. So he left to go to a startup company, and I went into my senior vice president in the engineering department and said, hey, I'd like his job. And so one of the cruel lessons of corporate America was, well, you're too young. You're too young for that job. And naturally, I was disappointed by that. But the great news, when one door closes, another one opens. So, had word got out that I didn't get that job, and some folks approached me and said, hey, we're going to leave, and we're going to do a startup. We've got some venture capitalists out of Wall Street, New York City, and we need a vice president of engineering. Are you interested? And naturally, I was. And so I left corporate America and went and did my first startup.
So how was that journey?
Oh, so that was great because, I was not an entrepreneur, and the venture capitalists had the business plan, the idea, but they knew they were money people and they needed operators. So they brought in our team to help execute the plan, which was, again, we were doing ultra high speed internet for businesses and all those types of things, and it was a great learning ground because we didn't have to worry about money. Obviously, we had milestones to make and all those things, but, we had a fund that we were drawing on, and we, as the management team, we just simply needed to execute. And so that was fantastic. The problem was the dot-com bubble burst. 9/11 came along. We had anthrax. We had the DC sniper. We had planes falling out of the sky in New York City post 9/11. And so, the country was on edge. And so we decided to change paths. Well, the venture capitalists did. And so we sold off that company in pieces and parts. We did fairly well. I didn't have to work, and I was just looking for my next thing. And I knew I couldn't go back into corporate once I had a taste of running the show, charting your own path, and truly executing on a plan that you've been a part of.
So if there's people out there, listeners out there, especially with the situation today with unemployment is low, this is a pretty good time to be an entrepreneur if you have guts.
Absolutely. So what I tell most people, I do a lot of public speaking on being an entrepreneur. The first thing is there's enough capital out there. Whatever it is that you're trying to do, you can probably find the capital. Now you have to have the right business plan. You got to do your research, your homework. You got to have a great management team, people that you can have trust and confidence in, that they're going to go execute, all of those things. But yes, there is no better time to get out there and give it a shot.
Yeah, there's plenty of money. So now you've got taste of entrepreneurship. Is this when you started your first company?
So after we left that with the venture capitalists, great training on all of those things. Venture capitalists, they want, they're driven by return on investment, right? What are the rules for drawing on the capital? All those things that you see the companies out in Silicon Valley doing, all of those things we got exposed to. So once we sold that company off in pieces and parts, we said we were going to do this again with our own capital. And so that's when we started our federal business. Again, folks approached me with an idea. Again, it was 3 different people that approached me, and I said, I had told them, no, I don't want to go back into the military and the federal sector. But after the 3rd person approached me, I said, well, maybe there's something to this. I knew that the country, again, this is post 9/11, we would need help in counterterrorism and keeping the country safe. Again, going back to what we learned and we were trained in, and helping build the country, protect the country. So we started our federal sector business, and it was the right time, the right space. We assembled a great team of people. We used our own money this time, and away we went, and we did okay.
And so you have since gotten out of that business, right?
Yes, we sold that company in December of 2018.
And so now you're off to your latest venture, which is
AC4S Technologies. We're what most people would call managed services, but it's essentially outsourced tech support. So we help businesses, nonprofits, academia with their technology issues. We know we can't do anything without technology these days. Some of it's hard. And so we help them take IT from a cost center to something that is a differentiator and a revenue driver. And, how do you maximize in the organization and technology?
That's a real big deal today. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you take the advent of the phone and all the craziness and stuff and security with everything going on right now.
Right.
As we get close to the end of segment 4, would you share at least 1 or 2 real takeaways that you've learned in your journey that you would tell your own kids or a startup entrepreneur that they need to make sure, just from your experiences, that they would do a couple of real take-homes?
I think I get asked that question a lot, and I think there's 2 things. So first off, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, the details of it is, first off, you want to be in an industry that's growing. So you didn't want to start a mortgage company in 2008, right?
Right.
Okay. So it's not rocket science there. You want to be in an industry that there's a clear need, that has potential to grow and all those things. That's just going to make it that much easier. So that's item number 1. The second thing is, it really boils down to leadership. And, I've seen lots of companies that don't go so well. They have their challenges, but it really boils down to, do you have the right team of leaders in place to move the needle and accomplish what you're trying to get accomplished? Whether you're doing that with venture capital money, private equity group money, what have you, your own money, you need to assemble the right team of people and take care of those people, motivate those people to get the mission done.
Right. So all this capital people moan about and everything else, it's out there for sure. Mm-hmm. It really, really boils down to leadership. And it sounds like your whole journey's been about leadership. Would that be safe?
That's a safe assumption.
And I know our listeners out there really appreciate that comment. And do you have one last point you'd like to make on leadership?
Well, again, there's a time for supervising, there's a time for managing, and there's a time for leading. Those are 3 distinctly different things.
Right.
And you have to do all of those in whatever company it is. If you're a startup company or a multi-billion-dollar organization, you have to manage, supervise, and lead. I think the most important thing at the end of the day is you've got to lead people down the path with the proper leadership and guidance. There's nothing you can't get done.
Well, again, Hugh, I want to really thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your journey.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
And again, I'm Deanacres, your CEO Hour host each week, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs that share their journeys. And, we've been blessed this week to have Hugh Campbell, CEO of AC4S Technologies. And my takeaway today, and I'm going to write it down for my teams, is really let's measure how we're managing, supervising, and bringing leadership. Hugh, again, thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks for listening to this CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanacres.com. That's deanacres.com. And join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.